This story actually takes place, starts in about 2005, when I first enlisted in the United States Marines. And at that time, I was still kind of unsure of what I wanted to do after I finished my service. I wasn't sure what career I wanted to go into. And about halfway through, as a young Lance Corporal in the Marines, I witnessed an injury so severe that there was nothing in my Marine Corps medical training that had prepared me for or allowed me to do anything. Yeah. It was completely beyond my ability to help this person. I won't get into the graphic nature, but that is, the nature of war, is just extreme injuries. And after seeing this, this incident and being totally helpless to help this person, I could do nothing for them, I decided that once I wanted to get out of the Marine Corps, I was going to go into the field of medicine. I really wasn't sure yet. After my last combat zone, I myself got injured. A few injuries, but yeah. And I was still stationed out in Okinawa, Japan. So I was getting acupuncture. And the miraculous health benefits of acupuncture, the ability to just support and help the recovery from being injured, was just phenomenal. And it exceeded my expectations tenfold. So after I got out of the Marine Corps, I went into a school in Iowa for pre-med. And as I was investing more and more time into the Western modalities, I started picking up books by a man named Atul Gawande, who wrote Complications and Surgeon's Guide to an Imperfect Science. And it just kind of talked about the beast that is Western medicine and how people in the system don't necessarily get out of the system. They just continue to participate in the Western hospital field. And it was very disparaging. It was like, unhappy to read that. And the more I investigated, the more I became passionate about the idea of, preventative medicine and preventing people from getting into the system. So after I finished my undergraduate, I enrolled for ACTCM. While I was in my undergrad, I was volunteering at a local hospital that had a dialysis ward. And it just broke my heart seeing these people who had done nothing, to their bodies purposefully. This isn't drugs or alcohol abuse. This is just either polycystic kidney disease or some other genetic trait, or either just unfortunate and an accident occurred and depleted their renal function. They weren't able to, filter their blood like they could, and they were just dying. So they hook them up to a dialysis machine, and they spend a couple hours, every week just in pain, just so that something can filter their blood mechanically. It's a science that, although it's life-saving, is nowhere near civil. It's just ugly and a sad process to watch. And they have to stay on these dialysis machines. They don't get to ever go off until they have another kidney, which is not, easy to come by. So I'd been kind of just considering that idea for a number of years after experiencing it firsthand. And I didn't really understand that one could just donate a kidney and be totally fine and not have an actual issue with their health if all the complications didn't occur and everything went fine. So I started investigating it more as I was a student here. And I started talking with some of the transplant coordinators at UCSF, which is a wonderful organization, incredibly considerate and helpful, informative people there who just bent over backwards to make this a very easy transplant issue. They covered all the costs. I didn't have to pay for any of the surgeries myself. And they covered my health care afterwards for a brief period of time just to make sure there wasn't any issue. And they informed me of a process called a kidney donor chain, which I had never heard of before, and is a wonderful, wonderful program. Essentially, let's say I wanted to donate a kidney to my invisible friend here, and we were not a good match. What I could do is say, I have a kidney for anyone's friend or family members who can donate a kidney to my friend. And this factor of setting off by one allows for a kidney chain to form. So because I donated one kidney, 7 people got kidneys. Yeah. And they had been waiting for years on this list, waiting for the right sort of connection to occur to where one donor who didn't have an intended recipient was the right match for a long enough chain to kick off. And it's 6 months of blood testing and watching your diet and, you know, peeing in gigantic bottles and filling the whole thing up and bringing it into UCSF to make sure that your creatinine levels and protein levels and albumin levels are all equal and fine. And so yeah, I decided to sign up with that program and enroll in all of those tests. And the entire time I was, you know, kind of questioning my TCM teachers and asking them for advice and, you know, support in this. And they gave me formulas and acupuncture treatments. And up to the surgery, I had a great experience. The surgery itself went just perfectly. And the really miraculous thing was using TCM and acupuncture and herbs for the healing and recovery process. I had this incredible amount of scar tissue. It's a laparoscopic surgery that's done through the abdomen, so it actually cuts through all the fascia and all the muscles to pull the organ out up below the belly button. Yeah. And I just had this really incredible scar tissue there. And I started getting tuina and using liniments and doing the acupuncture technique, you know, surround the dragon with some moxa and liniments. And just in a period of just 3 or 4 months, the scar tissue just went way down. Just the flesh became much more pink and not so just ugly red, and the recovery rate was just doubled. It was incredible. When I went in for my checkups, they were always very surprised at the quick and seamless, infectionless, low scarring process. It was wonderful. And I just continued on with taking Chinese herbs and exercising regularly and doing qigong and stretching and all these different practices that we hear about. And within, I think, a year, maybe a little bit over a year, I actually ran the 26.2 San Francisco Marathon, which is one of the more challenging marathons in the world in terms of just 26.2 marathons. So it was a wonderful recovery. There's no issues with it whatsoever. And I had a great experience, and it was pretty easy. I mean, even with, especially with the school is so accommodating and they're so into their students' health, I was able to take a 24-unit quarter the 2 weeks after donating a kidney. So I donated over a Christmas break. I took like the last week off from finals and then just took those 2 weeks and then started class up again 2 weeks after that. And I was fine. There was no problems. Yeah, the faculty were very helpful. I did learn the hard way a few herbs that you cannot take if you have renal either damage or PKD. One of them is mutong. Mutong will destroy your kidneys if you have reduced kidney function. For a number of reasons, mainly being that especially a new kidney that hasn't expanded yet, since once your body only has one kidney, it tends to actually enlarge to accommodate the now missing kidney. And mutong is really bad for that. Yeah. So it's been about 2 years since actually donating, and I have a complete recovery and great health. And yeah, I recommend it to anyone who is considering that as an option. It is a lot to take in. The risks are pretty low in terms of the surgery itself. There's, I think, like a 1 in 2,000 chance of mortality, or maybe that's just serious injury, which is pretty low, I think, especially UCSF, which has no history of that whatsoever. There is some numbness locally, just like between the scar tissue and the belly button, but that's not really that big of a deal.